Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Wayne County. We are a diverse congregation that welcomes you as you are, regardless of your age, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, economic status, or physical ability. We come together to seek deeper meaning and understanding from each other and the world around us. Your presence here today is a gift that brings us closer to that understanding. We are an active community that lives beyond the hours of Sunday service. And I would like to call your attention to the following. Today, from 2 to 4 p.m., there will be caroling, refreshments, and cookie decorating. Take a moment from your busy day to breathe in the season at this family-friendly event sponsored by the Music Committee. Join us December 9th for an international dance party from 7 to 11 p.m. We will play the top 3 dance videos from 25 countries, representing some of the many nationalities at OSU Worcester and in our community. Please see Martin LaBelle, is he here, if you have any questions. Thursday, December 15th, we will hold a meditative service called Blue Christmas. This service is for those who struggle with the holiday season. More information will be shared in the coming weeks. If you would like to find out more about our activities, feel free to ask Karen Skubik, our membership coordinator, after the service.
Thank you, Tim. And on that cue, I'd like to welcome any visitors we might have here today. And at this part of the service, we give you the opportunity to stand up if you'd like to introduce yourself or someone with you if you've never done so before. I know it's nice to see. Where's Debbie and Roy? I saw them. It's nice to see them back. Great to see you. And is there anyone else that's new or wants to introduce themselves and let us know who they are? You don't have to, but that way we can greet you better after the service. Doesn't look like anyone wants to stand up, but hope you find someone here that you've never talked to before after the service during coffee hour and you spend some time with them. Thank you.
Now, I would ask you to open your minds and silence your cell phones for our time together. Our chalice lighting this morning is a riff by Reverend Mark D. Morrison Reed. I came as rain, a droplet from the sky, splashing, returning to sisters and brothers, a trickle, then a rivulet, a cascading stream, following the course of least resistance. Pond, rapids, lake, river, growing deep and powerful, placid and powerful, flowing into the ocean, into silence that is not an end. I came as a cloud, shading those I loved, dew that glistened and evaporated, tears coursing down, waters of joy and gratitude. Life's precipitation can't be captured or contained, only kissed. Let us now rise in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. The music can be found in the gray hymnal.
Good morning, everyone. Is there anyone else who wants to come join for the Time for All Ages story up here with me? You are ready, aren't you, Hawthorne? And I have to say, I loved seeing the hugs that just happened up here a little while ago, because we're talking about having fresh eyes and wonder and amazement. But my story is really focusing on the fact that sometimes it's the little tiny things that we need to have fresh eyes about. It's the things that we think we know all about. So this is a story when all of the animals who used to live in harmony and got along just fine started bickering, and they would just like talk to one another, and nobody would listen to what anyone had to say. And one day, while they were talking, a really bad thing happened. There was this rumbling sound that turned into a pounding sound, and the sky broke away from the earth. Well, the animals did not know what to do, and so they were running around. And the moose has big old antlers. He said, well, I'm just going to hold that sky with my antlers. And he hooked him up, and that worked for a while. But the animals still hadn't learned to listen, because while the moose was walking up there, Grandmother Spider, very, very tiny, she had been saying, I think I have an idea. They hadn't heard her. Moose just kind of railroaded in and put those antlers up there. Well, it was working just fine. They still hadn't learned to listen to each other, especially not to little Grandmother Spider. And suddenly, that rumbling happened again. And it turned back into a pounding and back into a really crashing sound, and the sky went even further away. The moose could not hold it. Well, the animals were just running around crazy. Beaver kept saying, build, hi. Bear said, I'm strong, very, very strong. Grandmother Spider, she's tiny. Most people don't listen to her, but she said, excuse me, I think I have an idea. Well, they didn't listen to her, of course, and Bear just walked up, as Bear does, and he just said, I'm going to hold the sky with my claws, and he held it for a while. They hadn't learned their lesson. They hadn't paid any attention to Grandmother Spider. And you know what happened? That rumbling came back, and it turned back into a pounding and back into a crashing sound, and the sky went even farther away. Moose couldn't do it. Bear wasn't strong enough. What were they going to do? Grandmother Spider said, excuse me, I think I have an idea. And they didn't listen. But Beaver said, I build high. Well, Beaver built this really high tower, and it held the sky for a while. And that was great, except they still hadn't learned to see things through fresh eyes. You think, what happened next?
And the storm came back.
It did. That storm came back, the rumbling and the pounding, and it went away again. Finally, the animals were just running around crazy. What are we going to do? I don't know what to do. The moose's antlers didn't work. The bear's not strong enough. The beaver can't build anything high enough. Grandmother Spider, she's tiny. But like maybe some of you, she's persistent, and that word means she keeps saying what she knows to be true. I think I have an idea. Well, somebody turned to her and said, okay, what is it you think you can do that nobody else can do? And she said, well, I spin these webs, and I could spin and loop it around the sky, and spin and loop it around the sky. And she proceeded to loop her webs all the way around the earth. And that held. The storm didn't come back because the animals stopped assuming that just because you're little tiny, there's nothing amazing about you. And that sky held. And they started looking at life through fresh eyes, listening to the little ones as well as the big loud ones, knowing that everyone has their own wisdom to share. And I'll tell you what, maybe you will see things through fresh eyes now, because what I've been told is Grandma Spider's webs are still there. Driving home today, or maybe sometime this week, you look out your window, and you may see some lines coming down from the sky. There will be people who will tell you those are sunbeams or sun rays, but I'm here to tell you the truth. Those are Grandma Spider's webs, and they are still holding the sky to the earth. And I hope your fresh eyes allow you to see wonder in all sorts of little things. All right, so they will sing us out, and we will go off to RE.
Our faith is centered on the belief that we can make this world a better place for all who dwell in it. In order to realize that vision, we need both the motivation and the means. Your donation helps the community put its faith into action by supporting our programming and facilities. This morning and throughout the month of December, donations that are not designated for another purpose will be split with Orville Friendship Meals. The offering will now be collected and gratefully received. Let us be grateful when we are able to give. For many to have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share our gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
So I do apologize. You can tell we've got our signals mixed up a little bit this morning, and you thought online worship was difficult. Let us just take a moment to center ourselves. Take in a deep breath. Many of us woke up this morning to frost on our cars. Many of us grumbled. Maybe you started your car early. But maybe one of you looked at the fractals, looked at the patterns that the cold and the air and the moisture create, and said to yourself, there is beauty in this design. Maybe you took a pause as you walked out the door, exhaled and saw your breath. And maybe you thought of the life that is in that, the exchange between you and the trees of oxygen and carbon. Maybe as you came here this morning, you thought about the things that you passed. Beauty of the naked trees, the wonder of the sun brightly shining through your window, and then you put your visor down. Maybe you thought of the miracle of the automobile and how amazing it is that we travel so fast, so far. And maybe there's hope that we can do so in a way that is sustainable. Maybe you noticed the 1,000 tiny miracles between waking and now. The smell of a cup of tea, the journey that tablespoon of sugar took to get into your cup, the wonder of the building of your dwelling. Or maybe you let these miracles go unnoticed. Don't worry, they're still there. As we come to this time of austerity, of winter, sometimes we have to stop, breathe, and see that indeed there are miracles all around us. I'd like to take a moment to share with you some of the joys and sorrows of our community. We hold Sharon, our music director, closely in our heart. While her mother is starting to recover and doing well, her friend Ailey Nesher, has been taking a turn for the worse and is in palliative care. It is hard to see a good friend slowly go. We wish Sharon strength. We wish her friend peace as they move on this journey together. Many of you know that the woman who cleans our building, Melissa, her granddaughter died suddenly at the age of 3. It was acute leukemia, and it was very, very unexpected. And as you can imagine, Melissa and her family are heartbroken. There is a GoFundMe that I've sent around to friends if you want to help out with burial expenses. And Melissa has been spending time in the building for refuge. She finds comfort here. So if you see her, she may want to talk to you. And I recommend listening, for she has a beautiful perspective, and she would love to hear your hearts. I also think of my colleagues in Columbus. Some of you may know that they were having a drag story hour that was going to be protested by the Proud Boys yesterday. Due to some concerns by the queens who were holding the story hour, it was canceled at the last minute. Nevertheless, 200 of the Proud Boys showed up, and nothing happened. The police were there. Most people avoided the situation. It is a joy that there is no violence, and it is a deep sorrow that people still hold those prejudices against some of the most beautiful people in the world. We have our stones for joys and sorrows. If you wish to place a stone in the water to name a sorrow or a joy that is in your heart, I encourage you now to do so. Spirit of Life will be playing, and if you know the words, you are welcome to sing along.
Our reading this morning is from Mary Gray. It's called When I Am Wise. When I am wise in the speech of grass, I forget the sound of words and walk into the bottomland and lie with my head on the ground and listen to what grass tells me about small places for wind to sing, about the labor of insects, about shadows dank with spice, and the friendliness of weeds. When I am in the dance of grass, I forget the name and run into the rippling bottomland and lean against the silence which flows out of the crumpled mountains and rises through slick blades, pods, wheat stems, and curly shoots, and is carried by wind for miles from my outstretched hands.
There's this improvisational game. It was more of a warm-up activity, actually, and it's called This Is. Fairly simple game, maybe some of you know. You're given a random object, and you have to say what the purpose of the item is, except you cannot say what the actual purpose of the item is. You have to make up something completely different. I'm going to do this. For example, does anybody have something on them that they think is unusual? Okay, all right. That's a water bottle. I want to see what this one is. Nancy has something unusual. What is it? All right, so this actually is not fa la 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 la. This is a chemical equation that can actually solve tone deafness. Right? The idea is to take something benign, right, and turn it into something that we haven't seen before, something new and unusual, right? You get the idea of this kind of activity, right? It's a warm-up game. What's the goal? Think outside the box, right? This is what improvers do. The idea, make something normal unexpected, because that's funny, right? It tickles us to see something in a way we have never imagined it before. It's a fresh perspective on the usual. This is what has made Jerry Seinfeld a billionaire, right? How many Jerry Seinfeld jokes start with, have you ever noticed? Right? Jerry Seinfeld joke. Do you ever notice that when you're sitting at a red light, when the person in front of you pulls up a couple of inches, you're compelled to go forward too? Do we really think we're going to make progress towards our destination? Whoa, I thought I was going to be late, but now I'm 9 inches closer. I can get a Danish. Right? Jerry Seinfeld, something we've all experienced, new perspective, observational comedy, right? Looking at things in a new way. Wonder. That's the theme, wonder. For our month of December, we're going to be talking about wonder. And when we're used to seeing something, that normal perspective over and over again, the fa la 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 la, or just why am I going 9 inches further, when we're used to seeing that in a normal perspective all the time, it can be hard to find wonder. This is not to say this normal perspective is a bad thing. Seeing things and learning about things, about what they are in a normal perspective is good, right? How many of you tested the chairs before you sat down on them? Because how do you know they're really going to work? You've had experience. You know it. You don't have to test it. You don't have to come at it with fresh eyes every single time. However, it does mean that the more we are locked into a personal perspective, the harder it can be to experience wonder. How many of you are familiar with the poet Mark Nepo? No? All right. Just me. Mark Nepo is a poet. I have a couple of his books. He's phenomenal. I don't use him too much because his poems are like fudge, right? They're thick and they're rich and they need to be savored over a long period of time. But he has this book, which is about the artistic process, called Drinking from the River of Light, the life of expression. And he has a chapter that is about perception. And in this, he says, the gift of perception resides in sustaining our sensitivity to wonder, which means that while we can always learn from others, we are called to be touched by life directly. We are called to maintain our first-hand experience, which then can be integrated with the experience of others. For true perception takes place below all of the values and the maps we inherit. Wonder. Wonder is to be touched by life directly. To value your first-hand experience and go deeper than the maps and values that we have been taught over the course of our lives. To strip away all of those layers of understanding to see a world of wonder with fresh eyes. Simple enough, right? We can all do that. Flip the switch, turn all those off, just unlearn everything we've learned over the past, you're all about in your 30s, past 30 years. Obviously, it's not that easy. But I have found that there are two ways that wonder often hits us. One is to be overwhelmed by beauty. And the second is to be starved for it. So I'm going to talk about a very personal experience about being overwhelmed by beauty. It was late spring, early summer, end of my sophomore year in college. And I was visiting another friend on their campus because most of the campus was gone. There were just a few folks left. And I was helping them with cleaning up and saying goodbye. And we're in our early 20-somethings, a bunch of cut-up kids. And what are we doing at this college campus near the end of the year? Dumpster diving. Do you know why you dumpster? You all should know why you dumpster dive at the end of this college year, right? All of the microwaves, mini fridges, and toaster ovens that people are throwing out because they don't want to move them. Come on, folks, that's good stuff. So me and my friends, yes, I can tell the professors around here going, I don't understand why they throw all that stuff out, right? So we were dumpster diving, and eventually it got so dark where we couldn't see what we were doing, and there might have been some authorities who were looking for us. So we went for a walk, and we decided to go for a walk, and one of my friends was like, there's this field over here, we're going to go over here, and it's by these big, huge power lines, and you walk under the power lines because they mow probably about once a year, I swear. So they looked like they had mowed probably early in the spring, and so the grass was fairly high, but the forest and everything around it was intraversable, so we could still walk amongst these high grasses. So we're cresting this hill, and we get to the top, and we're a bunch of 20-somethings. Are we nice and quiet and respectful? Oh no! All of the male testosterone, young man energy, all of that stuff cutting up, making horrible remarks. We get to the top of the hill, and we all fall silent. The hill stretches down for about a mile. Tall grasses in that large swath, forest on either side. And in those tall grasses for that mile is nothing but fireflies. Dancing, swimming, lilting with the cooling night air, and everyone is still drinking in this river of light. Totally amazed. And I swear to you, that was the holiest experience I have had in my life. Bless you, bless you. Now, I know for a fact that we have a few insect experts in the congregation. It doesn't help that they're sitting right next to each other, just about over there. And I am sure you two could tell me all about the bioluminescence chemistry of the firefly. I'm sure you could tell me they're not really flies, they're beetles, right? And you could tell me that they're of the family Limpradae? Limpirid. I have it spelled here, but I do not have it pronounced correctly, right? And I could tell Susan knew exactly what was going to happen when I said tall grasses, because she started nodding, because she knows what do tall grasses do? They're great houses for fireflies. They love all of that stuff, that tall grass like that. I was watching her to see if she would get it, and sure enough, I could see the light in her, no pun intended, the light in her eyes as we were talking about this. You can tell me all of these things. You can tell me all of the science behind these things. And all of it, absolutely true. And just like that reading, the very beginning, when I am wise in the speech of the grass, I forget the sound of words. It may talk to me. It may tell me the details. I may know the science, but when I am in that holy space, I forget the words. I forget the science, and I am filled with wonder. Beauty. Doesn't diminish the science, but it gives me that speech to that inner core, that thing that allows me to touch life directly. How many of you have had those moments, right? I know most of us have, right? Maybe it was the first time you held your firstborn. Maybe it was the first time you saw the ocean and got to think of its vastness and who lives in there. Maybe you look up at that clear night sky and you just feel small. Or maybe it was during science class when you were learning about the atom and you felt immense and large. Maybe it is the splendor of fall, the newness and creation of spring. Maybe it is just the wonder of the taste of the perfect strawberry. Most of us have had those moments where reality is tilted just a bit from what we are used to. And we are overwhelmed by beauty. And for some of us, it's a little harder. For some of us, we have to be more intentional. And this brings me to the second way beauty can be encountered, wonder, and that is by being starved for it. That way is a way for us to find it, and more aptly in these instances, it's a way of beauty finding us. In the Mark Nepo book that I mentioned earlier, he writes about one of these experiences where he was starved by beauty and beauty found him. During a hospital visit, around the time when he was dealing with a cancer diagnosis, he had both a bone marrow sample and a spinal tap on the same day. Okay, I'm judging by the reaction that some of you have an idea about what this may feel like. I have no idea, but your reaction makes me go, I don't want to do that ever in my life. No. Neither did Mark, because the nurses told him, you're going to need your spinal tap fluid to replace itself. You are going to need to lie still for 6 to 8 hours. How many of you are really good at being still for 6 to 8 hours when you're not asleep? Right. Okay, I see some people who could do that, especially if Netflix has got something really good. I'm going to assume this is pre-Netflix. But it wasn't easy for Mark Nepo to hold still. So he was kind of restless, but every time he would move, what would happen? Splitting headache. Absolutely splitting headache. He was forced to lie still, and he ends up facing out the window, looking at an apple tree that is in his yard. An apple tree that he had seen 1,000 times before. an apple tree that had no significance to him whatsoever. And he writes, "Bless you. Now unable to move without inducing pain, I was forced into a moment of indigenous perception. Seeing the apple tree freshly, it came alive, and I listened to the tree for the very first time." He goes on and writes, "Indigenous perception allows us to relate to everything more deeply as a center of living onto itself." Something as a center of living onto itself. It took me a good minute or two to kind of wrap my head around this concept of having something that is a center of living unto itself, right? Relating to things more deeply. But then I was thinking again about the night with the fireflies, right? I saw in them a uniqueness and beauty, a wonder where I could see the beauty of life in itself centered in their existence, right? I felt a connection to them, related to them, more than that scientific level, but on a deeper level. I like to frame it as the divinity in me, the divinity that resides in each and every one of us. The divinity in me recognized the divinity in them. Right? Mark Nepo recognized the divinity in that apple tree that it contains, and the divinity in him recognized that. Listened to that divinity. And that's the thing about wonder. The thing about wonder, right? Whether we create it by being in that place of stillness, or whether it comes screaming at us like those field of fireflies did. Wonder comes from inside us, always. Each of you has something here that sparks you. Take a moment, think about it. What is it that sparks you? What is something you enjoy doing? What is something that's maybe a hobby? What is something you do at work that maybe brings you a spark of happiness, a spark of joy, a spark of contentment? Maybe it's something that you do around the house, right? Have you ever found yourself smiling doing dishes? I do. You get meditative. Maybe dishes is for you, right? Maybe it's vacuuming. I knew a minister who, when he was stuck on a sermon, would vacuum. His wife was so thrilled with this. But it brought a meditative presence to him. It allowed him to connect. What is that thing that you find that brings you that small amount of happiness? I'm not saying joy, I'm not saying wonder, something that is pleasant to you. And when was the last time you examined it deeply? When was the last time you listened to it? When was the first time you discovered this activity? Think about that. What did you feel when you first discovered the joy of this activity? When was the first time you fell in love with it? How many of you remember the first book you fell in love with? Why? What was it about it, right? Maybe some of you remember the first time you created something that said to yourself, I need to do this again, right? Maybe it was a couple of lines on a piece of paper. Maybe it was a couple of notes you put together on an instrument. Maybe it was singing something. Maybe it was 3 words on a page. Maybe it was a really good Excel spreadsheet. But we all have those things that we found that we fell in love with. How often do you dig deep and think about why that happened? What it is about you that found the beauty in that? That divinity in you that loves, that urge, that connects to something and finds beauty. We all contain the capability to wonder, my friends. That is the spark within you. That is the divine that finds that beauty. So again, when we talk about wonder, so often we talk about the things in where we find wonder. We talk about the fireflies. We talk about the apple tree. Wonder is not in those things. Wonder has never been in those things. Wonder has always been in us. Wonder is the connection we find with those things. The ability to put wonder upon an item, to find the beauty in it. That's the trick. And that is something that we all are capable of doing. You are all filled with the ability to find beauty. You're all filled with the ability to wonder. Very seriously, my friends, you are wonderful. And I thank you for that. May it be so. As we talk and sing of things of wonder, let us talk about this beautiful, wonderful planet at which we are upon. Please rise in body or spirit and sing our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home. I made a joke earlier before service that our first song, being that Alleluia song, might be a little hard for some folks, so I made sure to make up for it with Blue Boat Home at the end, because I know y'all love to sing that song. So if y'all love to sing, don't forget, 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to decorate, we're going to sing. I might even bring some gingerbread cookies. Yeah-huh. There is wonder in this life, my friends. There is wonder in every little thing. It can be hard to find sometimes. This world does its best to numb us to wonder. And that's what winter's here for. The austerity, the stillness. Find the wonder in it. It's beautiful out there. And my friends, looking at each of you, it's beautiful in here. You are a wonder, my friends. Go in peace.